Let's talk some sports, baby.
And remember, make tomorrow better than today and make today better than yesterday. And you know what we gonna do. We gonna holler at you until next time, baby.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and move on over to the NBA with some big problems in Houston. Through the week, many reports have surfaced regarding the dysfunction and unhappiness surrounding the franchise. Superstar James Harden is reportedly concerned about the direction of the team, while teammate Russell Westbrook has made it known he wants out of the city. Other players, such as PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon, have also expressed unhappiness about their contracts and roles with the team. The Rockets are under new leadership with a first-year GM and head coach. So, Drink, what's going on in Houston? Is a Russell Westbrook trade the answer?
Have you ever watched the show A Fresh Prince in Bel-Air, the show with Will Smith?
I'm aware. Yep.
And you know what I'm saying? It was a famous episode where Will Smith, I forgot what he did, but he came home and the whole house was empty. There was nothing there. He looking around like, hey, where everybody go?
Seen that gif, yeah.
So that's Westbrook. I think to me, that's Westbrook. I'm gonna tell you why. Here's the deal. Harden got a relationship with the owner. How do I know this? Because the owner gave up the farm to get him to Houston. They got a relationship. Good, bad, right or wrong, indifferent, I don't know. But they have a relationship. Westbrook should have a relationship because Houston was the only team dumb enough to take on his contract after the way he was playing with OKC. But okay, cool. I think Westbrook woke up and said, well, first of all, I don't like how this team panders to James Harden, but this is James Harden team. Then he said, okay, Mike D'Antoni gone, so I should get more love. Okay, Daryl Morey gone, so I should get definitely more love. And what I think is somebody that told Westbrook, look, bro, I don't know what you think is going to happen here, but this is James Harden team. Now, I have my theory on that. We mentioned this earlier. When you're a superstar leaving a team and you're coming to another player's team, it's one of two ways it can go. Either that incoming star, which is usually homegrown, either that incoming star, when I mean homegrown, I mean usually they're drafted or that team got them in a very early stage of their career. That's what I mean.
Established.
Yeah. But either that star, welcomes you with a warm embrace and say, hey, look, we're going to compromise and we're going to make this happen. You came here to win a championship. I want to win a championship. We're going to make this work. Or that superstar like, hey, dog, yo, this is me. This is all me. Hey, Rizzo, come on here. Come holler at your boy. This is all me here. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this is my thing. You can sit over there and do whatever. It's good to have you, but you know what I'm saying? This is me. You know what I'm saying? I keep the ball in my hands 80 to 90% of the time. All right, cool. Well, the problem with that was this. Well, yeah, I said the problem with that is this. When Westbrook came, I'm fairly confident he liked the way that Mike D'Antoni runs his teams. He's a guy, he got one guy that's ball dominant. That one guy makes majority of the plays, but he keeps the ball in his hand. Westbrook knew, okay, James can't play every minute of the game, so hopefully when he's not playing, I can get in and I can dominate the ball when I'm in, which he did for the most part, I thought. Unless I see something different, he dominated the ball when James Harden wasn't in the game. But now, as you see everyone's leaving, a different philosophy is coming. I said this. Maybe the head coach, the incoming head coach, maybe it's not what Westbrook want. And listen, I said this earlier. The writing is on the wall. You didn't hit your ceiling with this team. If you're Gordon and you're PJ Tucker and you're some of these other guys that's been on the team, Macklemore, Rivers, some of these other guys that was on the team for a while that seen you was up 3-2 on the Warriors, should have won that. Or seen you in the Western Conference Finals twice and should have been in the NBA Finals. And you just seen this past season, the writing on the wall. The best have passed us. We're not getting no better than what we once had. So now you want to move on as well. And I think Westbrook, at the end of the day, he say, hey, if I'm gonna go out like one of these guys that don't get a ring, I at least want to go out on a team where I'm the guy, and you know, so everything goes through me, and I can just pad my Hall of Fame resume. Cause make no mistake, all the triple-double stuff that he done, he will be a Hall of Famer. So at this point, if he feels as if he can't grow no more, like Houston's not gonna go anywhere, why not go to Chris Paul route? Because Chris Paul went to a team, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna stay there for a ham sandwich and he's gonna keep it moving." But that's not what happened. He actually made them a contender, which was kind of crazy. Go to the playoffs, playing some good ball, and now Chris Paul is probably the most sought-after guy right now, even though I don't think he's a legitimate free agent. But so many people want him now because they've seen that he actually created more value for himself by making that move to OKC. Now you got all these playoffs contenders like, yo, bring CP3 in. We could use CP3. We could use CP3. And he's on the back. You got to remember, Chris Paul 35. He's on the back end of his career. But that's what one move can do for you in the NBA. It can elevate you to a different status where people are like, yo, we're willing to pay you a few more bucks to get you over here. I think at the end of the day, where this goes wrong is James Harden. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to see the facts. I don't think James Harden that good of a teammate. I'm just going to put that out there. I just don't think he's that good of a teammate. I'm not going to blame him getting traded from OKC because he had nothing to do with that. But I will say, let's look at this real quick with Houston. He got to Houston. Houston acquired Dwight Howard. That was supposed to be a combo for the future. 3 years. That didn't work out. Dwight couldn't stand him. He couldn't stand Dwight. Won't. Ownership said, we're going with James. We'll see you later, Dwight, which was a good choice. I agree with ownership. I would do the same thing. Then you get Chris Paul. You give up the form, a good bit of the form to go get Chris Paul. Chris Paul works the first year, but he gets hurt. And then after that, you see James Harden relationship with Chris Paul also. Like, I don't like him, he don't like me. Hey, James, what needs to happen for you guys to get over the hump? Oh, I know what needs to happen. Basically, in so many words, Chris Paul got to get on up out of here. And that's what happened. All right, cool. So ownership says this again. All right, hey, we're going with James. Hey, Chris, thank you. Hey, good luck, everything in OKC or Orlando or wherever the hell you end up, right? So then here comes Westbrook, right? Childhood friends, grew up in California together. These guys love each other. If Westbrook could grow a beard like Harden's, he would grow it. All this other stuff, right? And you thinking, okay, match made in heaven. Now, 1 year later, Westbrook said, I want out. Now, I don't think it's a disdain between him and Harden like the other two departures, but he want out. So what's the common denominator? James Harden. You had 3 years with one superstar, you didn't like him. You had 2 years with another one, you didn't like him. Now you had 1 year with supposedly a lifelong friend, and now he want out. I'm just saying, it seems to me Houston is headed for a big rebuild with a new coach, new GM, and now once again you're in the same spot you've been in for quite a few years. James Harden with a bunch of guys. That ain't gonna get it done, folks. I'm here to tell you that ain't gonna get it done. Not in today's NBA, not in the 90s. Not even. You need something. You can't just be like dribble basket. Like, no, that's not gonna work. It's not that many minutes in the game. So, from my standpoint, I think a trade needs to happen. Is it an answer for the Rockets? No, I don't think so. They're just not. They're going to struggle. It is what it is. It's time to rebuild. Westbrook, however, it could be an answer for him to go back to what he do more, what he do more comfortably, and that's be a leader. That's be ball dominant. Is it successful? Not really, but it works. It works for him. Some players it just work for. Some players ain't in here trying to win the ring. They just want to be the most talked about. They want to be. Listen, I'm in for myself. It is what it is. I ain't mad at it. It is what it is. But that's how I look at that, and that's what I think happened in Houston.
I think you broke it down quite nicely, the dynamic and what exactly occurred in the past season, which was it would appear the one and only season in Houston for one Russell Westbrook. I think the point, just to kind of piggyback up where you're talking about the superstar dynamic, because I think if we're paying attention, we knew this was James Harden's team regardless. Even when you bring in Russell Westbrook, I was of the mindset that that's not going to change anything. If Russell Westbrook's coming in with the mindset that, oh, I'm going to be the dude, well, you're coming in this at the wrong time. I mean, this is a guy who just, has been doing things we really haven't seen from terms of scoring the basketball with how, now we got the 3-point fouls that we're seeing out there, the ability to draw contact and use that to his advantage and just own the game from the free throw line. James Harden has done that. And it's been successful enough to a point. It hasn't gotten them titles. It hasn't gotten them trip to the NBA Finals. But it's been more successful than what Russell Westbrook has done as a solo act. We can't deny that, especially come playoff time. Russell Westbrook has struggled as a solo act in the playoffs. And that should have been communicated somewhere. I don't think James Harden was the one to do it. I don't know if Mike D'Antoni is the guy to do that. But I guarantee you, if it was maybe it was Daryl Morey, but someone should have communicated that to Russell Westbrook to say, "Hey, you're going to be the 2 guy. James Harden is the 1." The other thing is, and this is something that I peeled from that Athletic article, where some of this, a lot of this dissension and it looks like Houston's in for some real problems if they don't make some moves and make them quickly. There's a lot of unhappy people in that locker room right now. But Westbrook, from a culture standpoint, because you can say whatever you want maybe about that declining jump shot and, his inability to, perform in the playoffs recently. But no one plays harder than Russell Westbrook. And I think one of the things that apparently he didn't like was kind of the team culture, guys not being held accountable, no discipline, lack of structure. And those I don't think that should be surprising, perhaps from a Mike D'Antoni team. I mean, when you just look at Mike D'Antoni and observe him, I really don't see him ever getting in anybody's behind except the referees from now and again. I don't really. And then again, you talk about when is a Mike D'Antoni team ever invested in playing defense? So you got that going on. Maybe that's some of the things that Russell Westbrook, really didn't see coming when he came down to Houston. So that could be where we're at now. I think on Houston's side, I think Houston's got to blow this thing up. I think they got to blow this thing up. I would be looking to move both of them and literally start over. I think you have to do that. You also got to keep in mind these guys' age. Westbrook's 31, I believe. Harden's 32. I mean, they're low 30 guys. They're not getting better. And then you can move Westbrook out of here and just go back to the same old you were talking about, James Harden and a bunch of dudes. We've seen that already. It hasn't worked to the highest to the place you want to go, and they want to win championships. It's not going to come with these guys, I don't think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and to your point about getting rid of them, listen, you got Philly waiting. Philly would take not just Philly. It's James Harden. There's some teams that's going to move, some body of water to get through there to get James Harden. Yeah, Westbrook might take a little longer, but to your point, it ain't like you can't get rid of these guys. Well, it ain't like you can't get rid of Harden. You definitely get rid of Harden, and it's a team like the Knicks or somebody that'll probably get rid of Westbrook for you. But like you said, it's definitely you can get rid of these guys.
And the other thing, and another reason, just to back up this with why they got to blow this thing up, I bring up Harden and Westbrook's age. everybody's old on this team. What we got? We got PJ Tucker's 35. Eric Gordon's 31. Covington's almost 30. I mean, they got – what is Damari Carroll doing on this roster? Tyson Chandler. I mean, these guys don't even play. You know, Luke and Mute. I mean, you're Jeff Green. I mean, he's 34. I mean, it's a bunch of dinosaurs on this team. And then you talk about your only really young pieces that you would like recognize their name are Daniel House. He out there flopping around in the bubble, sneaking people in his room or whatever. And then Ben McLemore. I mean, and that's really about it. There ain't a whole lot to like as far as young talent. You got to inject some youth on this team. When you bring up Philly, I think I brought up maybe a couple weeks ago James Harden to Philly with, you know, the move of Daryl Morey. I think Russell Westbrook to Philly makes sense too. Not both of them, but I would look at Russell Westbrook and for on the court reasons, but also maybe something we're not considering. Russell Westbrook to me is the perfect guy you add to that team to light an absolute fire under Joel Embiid. You talk about accountability. You talk about bringing the best out of people and being a leader. Remember what Jimmy Butler did when he was in Philly very briefly? I think Russell Westbrook's the guy to maybe get the best out of Joel Embiid.
Can I just are you assuming that they would trade Ben Simmons in that situation?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
Ben
right.
Simmons. Yeah, I would absolutely. Ben Simmons has to get at it. And then again, Houston needs young talent. I mean, that's Ben Simmons in a nutshell. I would also look. I know Westbrook. That's a bad contract. Well, Philly got some bad contracts on their team too.
But
you ever heard of Tobias Harris or Al Horford? Can we get one of them dudes out of there quick, fast, and in a hurry? And then so I would look at if I'm Philly and I'm Daryl Morey, maybe you try to get Westbrook. Maybe you try to sneak Covington back into Philly because they need some shooting too.
I was just going – okay, that's my point. That was my point. My problem with Westbrook is if you take Westbrook and they say you take Simmons, but you're gonna give up a trade because that's not even, or you're gonna give up some of your young talent that's probably the better shooters on your team at this point. Like, I just feel like you putting yourself in the same thing outside of the leadership part. Got that. But he can't shoot. So what are you going to do? Yeah. Westbrook going to Philly. They still put Embiid in pretty much in the same situation skill set wise.
That's still – I mean, yeah, Philly still they still have a structural problem that goes back to what they did last year with investing so much in height and nothing. So, I mean, when you look at shooting, they still be lacking a little bit there, although Covington would immediately help, as we saw. And the defensive versatility that he brought to Houston really allowed them to play that small ball style where Westbrook excelled. But then, I mean, a guy like Shake Milton, I mean, we saw what he did in his, the latter half of last season. I think Alec Burks can still give you a lot of good things off the bench, some instant scoring punch. I really think the thing about Westbrook to Philly is really Joel Embiid. I think Russell Westbrook could be the guy to get some consistency out of him and just really impress upon him what it looks like to work hard day in and day out and be a consistent force. Now, if you take Philly out of the equation for Westbrook, then I don't know where you go as far as contenders. I don't know if there's another contender that would look at him and say, yeah, bring him on in. Because a lot of teams, if you look around, they're set at point guard. So then it does look like, let's talk about the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks, if nothing else, they just need some excitement. And Russell Westbrook's gonna sell tickets. And if I'm James Dolan sitting up there in the Big Apple, I look, Westbrook, come on in. And maybe you can go out there after every game and take them face shots from the media because James Dolan could use a little less from the media, even though a lot of it's his own fault. But, I mean, the media, what is their incentive to even look at some of the players on the Knicks? Some of the media members are more well-known than the Knicks players. So, I mean, but outside of Philly, I think it is a bottom feeder type team because I don't think, given Westbrook's age and his skill set, a lot of people talk about the game kind of moving away from him because he's just not a good shooter. And I think if it's not Philly, then it could be one of those really bad Eastern Conference teams that maybe they come calling just for nothing else to sell tickets.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about. So y'all made some really interesting points, and I was kind of kicking it around while you guys were talking, thinking Would this be the year if you were going to rebuild Houston? We know that draft picks in this upcoming draft really aren't as valuable as they normally are. There's so many unknowns. You've got a couple guys at the top of the list, your Anthony Edwards, your LaMelo Balls, but then after that, it's just kind of like no one really knows what's in this. So there's a lot of teams with like multiple draft picks that are trying to make deals, and people seem to be wanting to sell draft picks more than buy them. Well, Houston only has one coming up in the next couple of years. All the nonsense trading they've been doing and pulling guys in and bringing them out. The problem with Russell Westbrook is that contract is awful. It's a 3-year, $132 million contract for a 32-year-old player that mostly relies on athleticism that's going to start quickly declining. And Westbrook doesn't have a lot of other repertoire in his game besides his athleticism. You know, it's not like LeBron where he can also pass and sometimes he can shoot. This and that. Like, you don't have – like, it's pretty much preordained. I'm just going to be faster than you. I'm going to work harder than you, and that's going to start running out. The other thing we have to consider is the NBA salary cap is about to go down next year, not come up. So that contract even gets worse when you project it to the next few years. This is one of the rare years that you're going to see it go down instead of up because of COVID. So the options are limited. Obviously, New York is the best answer if you want to get Westbrook out of town if you're Houston, because they can just eat his contract, and then you don't have to do much else, because you have to think Westbrook with that contract is probably a negative. You're either going to have to give up something else to dump him on somebody, or you're going to have to eat equally horrible contracts coming back. Like, for example, Charlotte's another team like you guys are talking about. You know, a team that just needs to sell tickets and wants to just get out of the funk they're in. You know, that'd be a good thing. You know, Devontae Graham, you got Terry Rozier, a couple other dudes. You know, Michael Jordan's got some pressure to start getting that team doing something besides the basement of the East. You know, he goes there. But then you could eat those you're going to eat those contracts like Nick Batum and some of the other guys they've got that are on those expiring contracts. That's going to suck if you're Houston, because you don't really get in a better. It's not like, oh, well, if we get rid of Houston or we get Westbrook, we're going to have all this cap and draft picks to go make a team. No, you're just going to get – at best, you're going to kind of get back to where you were. Like, you're not really going to be any better off. So it's not like there's some huge net positive, where James Harden probably still has he has a lot of positive value, obviously. You would get a lot of something back for James Harden. But that's obviously a complete blow up. And, you know, these owners don't think like we do. We often think, oh, blow it up for a year and just suck for a year. Then you get a bunch of dudes and you turn it around. Well, these owners sell tickets. They make money. They're not in the business of being awful if they can avoid it. You know, especially in the NBA where tanking really doesn't benefit you as much as other leagues. So I would be shocked if they tried it. Trust, you know, they did. But I would be surprised if they kicked Harden and Westbrook out and just completely blew it off the frame. But with those ages, boy, it kind of makes sense. Like you said, there are a lot of old guys running around. But I would say Indiana is another spot you could think of. Victor Oladipo, a lot of rumors that he wants out. He's kind of shot him down, but I think he maybe still wants out. Maybe Westbrook gets to go pair with Brogdon, Sabonis, and bubble hero T.J. Warren. You know, that's a nice little team of the East. I could definitely make a run. And here's one for you. You were talking about contenders. Why not the Clippers?
I said something about the Clippers earlier.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you were right. Like, why not the Clippers? I think a lot of people scoff and they go, well, but like, they don't have a point guard. You know, this Pat Beverly thing, that's cool, but I mean, that just, They got some contracts. They got Lou Williams. They got Montrezl Harrell. They can make contract packages. They can make the math work. And we know the biggest thing is Westbrook is ball dominant. But we know that was the bigger problem they had is Kawhi Leonard was so ball dominant because he had to be. He had so much pressure. He had to be the number one guy on defense. He had to handle the ball almost every possession. You know, so Westbrook could clean some of that up and give more opportunities to Kawhi and Paul George to be open. And they're one of the few contenders that could make it probably work if they wanted to. And if you got to think, if they want to get back into it this year and still stay with the Lakers, it'd be a thing.
And I'm glad you brought up the Clippers because we were kicking that around earlier. I think if you look at Westbrook going to the Clippers, I think Paul George would have to get out of there. I think Westbrook, Paul George, and Kawhi is just that's a little bit too much for me. And then also you bring Westbrook to the Clippers. Paul George for Houston in that sense is still a pretty nice find, and the contract would kind of sort of meet up. I also think if Westbrook goes to Clippers, that means Patrick Beverly has to get out of there. I don't see Beverly and Westbrook. I don't see that being a good combination.